Welcome, everyone. It's great to be back in our normal meeting room. This was the first week where we had facilities open, and I want to thank everyone who wore masks and took the precautions to help keep our fellow citizens as well as our city employees safe. We are doing our best to stay flexible while providing these services, while also ensuring the safety of our employees and also our fellow citizens. So it's always it's always good to be back in City Hall and in our room. Also, before I go on, for those of you who are wondering about what facilities are open and what the requirements are, please make sure to check out wichita.gov/coronavirus. That is our website, which will have the most up-to-date information. Obviously, our social media will have up-to-date information as well, so please follow us online. So as you might know, we had our budget retreat this week. It's one of a series of budget retreats. It's worth noting that we are facing a $12 million projected shortfall this year due to the coronavirus and a $16 million projected shortfall next year due to the coronavirus. So while we have some hard decisions to make ahead of us, we want to assure everyone that Wichita is in a better position than most cities as we have been responsible in the past when it comes to our budget practices. We actually have a double A rating by Standard & Poor's for our bonds, which means it's still safe to be doing business here in Wichita, and Wichita remains open for business. We have a track record of building reserves, and we expect that even in the budget shortfalls, we'll continue to have that good bond rating, again, as we're making some of these tough decisions. So we're dedicated as a council to continue keeping our city moving forward, even in what is the worst economic climate since the Great Depression. And so please stay tuned to some of those decisions coming up. I have been getting a lot of emails about different items that we might be forced to cut as a council moving forward so we can keep our budgets balanced. And I'll just be frank with everyone. There are no good decisions right now when it comes to balancing our budget. There are just less bad decisions. We know that what we have been doing as a city with our budget and some of these programs, they have value and they have been appreciated by the public, and it hurts to make these cuts. But as we move forward, we have to maintain our balanced budgets. We don't print money at the city level, and unless we had some help from the federal government, we really have to make some of these tough decisions. But please keep contact with your city council person and with the mayor so that while we have these discussions on making cuts here and there, we have the input of the public. I think that is very important. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about our library. Wichita Public Library is now opening for limited in-person services. Customers can pick up their holds using curbside and drive-up window services. They can utilize our pickup services to borrow materials, use public computers, print, fax, we have a fax machine, and make copies, and book a librarian sessions at the Advanced Learning Library. And I actually found out that fax machine is used quite frequently. So if you're someone who needs access to a fax machine, you can go down to our library and have that access. The Linwood Park Branch Library remains closed through June 1st and is currently offering curbside assistance. For more information about the current library services, please visit wichitalibrary.org. That will give you the most up-to-date information. With that, for those of you who are watching who might have questions you want to ask the mayor directly, you have an opportunity tonight on Channel 8 KPTS. I will be on the Ask the Mayor show at 8 p.m., which is pretty late for me to stay up, to be honest, but be happy to answer questions that are posted either on KPTS's Facebook page or by calling 316-491-5787. So that is 491-5787 is the number to call live during the show for Ask the Mayor at 8 p.m. tonight on Channel 8. So with that, I will be happy to take questions from those who are in attendance right now. Chance. He always has questions.
Where do you want me to stand?
6 feet away is where I want you to stand.
Yeah, so yesterday the county declined to issue any new orders on gathering sizes. I know early on you had expressed some concerns about an auction that was going on that had a huge crowd. It seems those kind of activities are going to be able to start back up again. As mayor, what are your thoughts on the cities not being able to set their own gathering size limits or anything like that?
So I want to be clear, and this is interesting, that the city of Wichita, unlike other states, we actually have no authority to pass stay-in orders, to pass the type of restrictions that, let's say, the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri can do. Instead, that duty falls to the county commission, and as the county commission also serves as our board of health. So the question that was just asked by the reporter is, I think, how I feel about that and how I feel about moving forward, where yesterday the county commission decided that instead of making a order to follow what was the governor's strategic plan for reopening that was crafted by healthcare professionals and medical doctors, to just somewhat, I think, advise for it, to suggest it, meaning that there are businesses and organizations that can just hit the light switch and turn back on now using their own discretion. But as Chance just pointed out, we've seen incidents of this happening even during the stay-in order that was irresponsible, that there were some people who valued profit over the health of our community and would actually cram people within a tight space for the purpose of selling items, putting all those people at risk of the coronavirus. Now, I'm not on the county commission, and what they do across the street is what they do. I don't have authority as mayor, neither does city council, to do much in response to that at this point. Maybe when we look over our ordinances and look over how we managed this global pandemic, maybe there'll be changes in the future. So I don't want to really opinionate too much about how other elected officials are handling this. I do know that Wichita as a city in Sedgwick County, we have done better handling the coronavirus crisis than a lot of other comparable cities. We have 21 deaths in our county right now, which is bad. 21 people dying is bad. I don't want to downplay that. I will say that the modeling showed, independent modeling sources showed that Wichita was projected to have about 200, 300 deaths from this virus if we did nothing, or if we reacted too late. And because the people of Wichita got the right information and began practicing social distancing and stay-in way before the governor enacted her order or the county enacted their order, I think we got ahead of this. We have been somewhat of a success story as far as adapting to this virus and understanding the causes that this virus has on our country and really globally. I mean, looking just 3 hours to the north of us, we're seeing just devastation compared to how we are. Now, I also want to talk briefly, and I guess I'm going long-winded here, about what this actually is. We're a bit of a victim of our own success, where now, because we handled this really well up front, we have people who say there really wasn't a big problem, we can open up and everything will be fine moving forward. And the reality is we need to be listening to healthcare professionals and public and medical professionals and still stay cautious. We still want to lower the amount of people who can contract this virus so that we can continue to save lives. We have 100,000 Americans who are dead right now. I mean, think about that. Like 100,000 people. That is like 9/11 happening every day for 25 days. That has a huge toll, not only on life, but also on our economy. And we have to rebuild. And the sad thing is that number, 100,000, only sticks if no one else dies today, if it all stops today. I was trying to figure out how to quantify that to make it so people get it, right? And I'm the 9/11 generation. I remember I was in college when 9/11 happened, so that's how I can think about this. But also, I looked up, what would 100 death certificates look like if they were piled up? And I don't know if you guys remember encyclopedias. I know Chance is too young to remember encyclopedias. When they get, when you stack them up, they're about 5 feet, right? So 5 feet wide. So if you stacked up, and the last encyclopedia that was printed was 32,000 pages. So if you stacked up 12 to 15 feet of encyclopedias, you would get the same height of death certificates in the U.S. that the U.S. has suffered. So if you can look at 12 feet high of death certificates stacked and you still think there's not a problem, that there's nothing we should be doing, then you're probably someone I can't really work with as far as policy. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
Kind of getting the reaction from people, and I'm assuming since the news, what have you heard from businesses? Because it can be kind of confusing, I'll follow the recommendations, but there's no, consequences to their actions other than, the outbreak that obviously is a issue. But, from questions from businesses and also residents, what have you been hearing? And also, how are you kind of, pushing them to move forward?
So my job as mayor, particularly in this crisis, because we're not the county commission, is to pass along information. And the question was about what am I hearing from businesses and what are they looking for as far as information and how they're responding. Last week or 2 weeks ago was our first small business council that I appointed. It's an advisory council to the mayor. And it is targeted at industries that have been really hit hardest by the coronavirus. These are service industries. And what I'm hearing from, I think, responsible business owners is how do I open up and still be safe to my employees and to my customers? When we talk to small business owners in Wichita, we learn right off the bat, they love their customers. They love our community, and they also, love their employees. They want to do things the right way. And they're looking for opportunities to buy not just PPE, but what's the best PPE? Let's make sure that their masks are the most, preventative as far as spreading this, and how can they open up in a safe manner? So they're looking, I think, a lot for guidance and then for other resources. And I will say that, our Wichita Chamber of Commerce on their website actually has done a really good job posting information about locally made masks, locally brewed hand sanitizer. Wichita has no shortage of breweries, so some of these breweries decided to make hand sanitizer during this time because you don't know what you're going to get when you buy stuff off Amazon, but if you're buying it locally, then not only are you helping our local economy and other small businesses, but you also have some assurance that the product is going to be good. So a lot of what I've been hearing has been more about, okay, we're ready to reopen, or when we are ready to reopen, what's the guidelines? How do we do it safely? And I think that's been the majority of what I've been hearing. I think online you hear kind of this, like, let us do what we want, that kind of loud minority. The people I've been speaking with have been more concerned about keeping people safe while opening responsibly than they have about, just profits.
And to kind of follow up on that, for, say, bars or nightclubs or pools, have you heard of any of them looking to reopen sooner than they expected? And, have they reached out to say, we need to open at this point, we're struggling? What guidelines, have you heard anything along those lines?
So the question was about bars and nightclubs and reopening, and have I heard, are any planning on reopening early, and also have I heard about them struggling? Yes, I've heard about struggling. My mother was a waitress and during the day and a bartender at night. We lived paycheck to paycheck. I don't know what we would have done as a family growing up if we were just shut off, if mom's income was shut off for 6 weeks. It's devastating. The service industry got hit very hard with this because there's really no way to social distance at a nightclub. So I know that there are people who want to get back to business, and I have not heard from any of these bars and nightclubs of people who want to do it irresponsibly. Does that mean they're not out there? I mean, we saw Lake of the Ozarks videos last week where, I think it was a bar, like a swim-up bar, and we saw people who now are recommended to be quarantined for at least 14 days because of that, just kind of jumping back into this behavior too fast. So will we see stuff like that in Wichita? Yeah, I hope not. But what I do know is that our businesses have been very responsible and are looking for the best practices. I'm seeing stuff on Facebook and commercials like, come to our restaurant. We have spread out our tables 6 feet apart. Those who prepare our food are wearing masks. we're seeing some of these safe practices be incorporated because people know you can't have a stable economy without having a focus on health as well. So, I think they're trying to combine that where you can come out, you can buy services here, but also we're going to do our best to keep you safe. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple more.
Well, go for it.
Okay.
We go one more. Yeah, I got all day, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay, I got all the time. So.
Megan just shook her head no when I said that, by the way.
So for, say Summer of Discovery, that big program where, they're able to travel, is that still happening? Is there options now that, maybe they can take? Because I know with the one cancellation of a summer camp that a school was holding, I can't remember the specific name right now, they kind of limited how many people they could take and up the price. So a lot of parents might be looking at, kind of finding the next step. So for the Summer of Discovery, is that something that you can see might have a chance, or are they still going to do field trips?
So the Summer of Discovery, the question was about Summer of Discovery and other like programs and moving forward, how are these going to move forward? To be honest, I don't have that answer for you right now. These things change so fast that, if I was to tell you, what last I heard, it might not be what it is right now. So again, I'd recommend everyone to go to one of our websites. If it's wichita.gov/coronavirus for that information, or that might lead you to a different website. Check that for the most up-to-date information. I will tell you that, as a dad, and my wife and I are able to, I still come to work, my wife's able to work from home. We are looking, just like I think a lot of other parents, see what the options are, because I have a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and it's pretty hard for my poor wife to work with them, jumping all over her and trying to, play games on her computer while she's typing out work. So we are also looking towards those programs. I think that a lot of people in our community are doing the same. And again, the trick is to balance, a positive educational experience with keeping people healthy. So that as we move forward, we're in uncharted territory through this entire virus situation. There's no blueprint. So, I think that we're trying to balance that. But I wish I had an answer to your particular question, but more global, that's how we're looking at it. Other questions?
You talked a little bit about the budget shortfall we're going to be expecting, and how there's not going to be any easy decisions, but can you talk maybe a little bit more in depth about what we can expect from that?
Yeah, so what I mean by no easy decisions is I think a lot of people assume that there will be cuts that can be made and they won't have any impact on our community. They won't have any impact on services. The reality is at the city level, most of what we do for the level of cuts we'll need, we're going to see we're going to feel it. If a program is cut, we usually have the program because there's a community of people who enjoy that program. So moving forward, we are trying to balance service with responsible budgeting, and you can't cut $12 million this year, $60 million next year without having an effect on our public. So my message is we aren't doing this because we devalue some of these programs. We know they're valuable. It's just when we talk about public safety, when we talk about transportation, when we're looking at some of the stuff that really we can't put on hold, like there's other problems that come with that, versus a program that is important that we need, but also if we're able to cut that program for 2 years, we get by, we have to cut that program. And for example, we have $150,000 that replants trees, and that's something. We understand trees are important. We understand, beautifying our city is important, but also we know that $150,000 goes further in our police and fire department than it does right now, in our Parks and Recs department for the purpose of trees, or utilities for the purpose of trees. So that's the type of stuff we're looking into.
With that being said, I know you furloughed some people here.
Mm-hmm.
Will those furloughs continue for the time being? What can you say about that?
So the furloughs actually falls under the department of the city manager. And while we work in the background with the city manager, and my role was to make sure that those who were furloughed still got a paycheck, because it's a very tough time to be furloughed without pay. Moving forward, I believe they were looking at strategic furloughs and people who are willing to take days off and going about that route. We also know that there are people who normally would be hired back for certain programs, and like rec center openings, lifeguard programs, stuff like this, that we're not moving forward those programs like we normally do. So those people will continue to be furloughed. Other questions? Chance, you want to push my button some more? You want to tell me, how do you feel about so-and-so saying this?
On the budget cuts, I noticed there are some funds that have a little bit more money than what was expected or budgeted, such as economic development had, I think, maybe 1.2 million or something extra. During the meeting yesterday, it seemed as if that might be untouchable, and then there are big cuts being made into core services. So could you talk to a little bit about some of the money that's untouchable versus the services and the warrant office and different things that are actually being considered to be cut?
So yeah, the question was about pretty much reserves. Like, what accounts are there money in the reserves versus, and how do we go and touch that money versus money that actually pertain to services that people would notice. So to me, a budget is a reflection of values, right? So to me, an untouchable might be different than to someone else. I was actually the one who pointed out that although we allocated 1.68 million for economic development, it looked like we have 1.3 million that is a cushion. After moving forward with the money that we all agree we should spend on that, we still have quite a bit that's still a cushion in there. Should we look at that? Should we look at that at borrowing from that fund or sweeping from that fund versus cutting some of these other programs? And that was something where I think there was another member who voiced the importance of economic development and possibly having, a $1.3 million cushion on a budget that's 1.6 million, the importance of that. So values differ, I think, but moving forward, we're still crafting the actions to take. We are still projecting, and that's why it was a tiered format as far as the cuts went, because while we project out, and we're pretty good with our modeling on what the deficits might be, the easy stuff should get cut first, and that is usually, savings that we didn't anticipate that now we see we're going to save money in one department, we can move that money into the general fund to cover our bills. And hopefully we won't get down to some of the tougher stuff, which, is more essential service type stuff. And really that depends on not only our economic, our economic forecasting, but also, if Washington, D.C. and our federal delegation are able to pass a bill to help us out during this time. I mean, that's something that's been talked about. A bill was passed out of the House. We'll see if the Senate responds because really, this is a national problem, and Wichita has been very responsible with our budgets. We've been very responsible with our spending. We're taking a hit like everyone else, and we want to make sure that we can still provide the services that makes our community so great. Other questions?
Yes, but this is kind of on a different path, so I wanted to wait. I don't know if you are aware of everything going on in Minneapolis with the police department and the African-American man who died in police custody. We were wondering, I saw Police Chief Ramsey tweeted about it, just that he's horrified about it, and I know you guys work really closely with the police department. Do you have anything to say about, what you guys are going to do or that you guys already do to make sure that something like that doesn't happen in this community?
Of course. So the question was about community policing, and given the tragic incidents that are happening in Minnesota, right? And that one of the great things about our police chief is that he has been able to utilize community policing in minorities of color. In minority communities or communities of color. And has really good networks and relationships there. And that's really important, is relationships, getting back to community policing. So some of the problems that we're seeing in other communities in Wichita, I think we are ahead when it comes to building relationships, building trust. I mean, trust is the foundation of relationships. Our police chief knows that, and is working with community leaders and has worked with community leaders when we've seen complaints or the type of concerns that we're now seeing nationally because of the videos that we're exposed to and that are bringing up some of these very troubling and really tough societal issues. Is that it? Chance? Go
So
ahead.
speaking of police, this just popped into my head, but will there be increased enforcement in Old Town this weekend since clubs will open?
That's a good question. To be honest, it was yesterday when we found out that the county commission were going to allow clubs to be open, and I haven't had a chance to speak with the chief of police, to be honest. I do know that they're agile, which means they respond to changes really fast. So if they are believing that we would have an increase of people, then it's reasonable to believe that they would be in that area as well, because they do a good job. So I haven't spoken to the police chief, but I do believe that if we're seeing more people going into Old Town, then they would respond appropriately with increased police as well to help usher people out at 2 a.m. Without causing any problems. All right, so again, I'll be on live tonight at KPTS Channel 8 for the live Call the Mayor show. It's a bit past my bedtime, but I still will be happy to take questions. Please post on the Facebook page for KPTS Channel 8 with your question, or just call our number, which will be posted on the screen as well. And if there's anything I could do, obviously reach out to me, shoot me emails, and please, if you haven't had a chance to watch the budget summit that we had on Tuesday, that is up on our YouTube page, so you can watch it. And if you have questions or comments, reach out to not only myself, but also your city council person. It's so important that the public is engaged when we make these budget decisions, so that we can have a budget that reflects the priorities of the community. And like I said, we have some really tough choices ahead of us, but we are going to do everything we can to maintain services while still being balanced and responsible. With that, anything else? Nope, Chance put away his notepads, so I think we're good. All right, thanks a lot, guys, I really appreciate it.